This is one of the biggest topics to cover, and things are constantly in motion and ever-changing with the world of hours of service. This particular video will only talk about some of the very basics of logging your hours of service. In later videos, we will deep dive into things like split sleeper berth, adverse driving conditions, personal conveyance, and many other topics. To start this, let's talk about reporting to work. If you are starting your day but feel ill, fatigued, or any other condition that could impair your driving, like hungover, call off. Don't come to work. The hours of service rules are designed to make the roadways safer for both the driver of the truck and the public at large. So remember, as we talk about hours of service, we are in many cases talking about the legal maximum hours you can work. However, if you become fatigued, it's time to stop driving, no matter if you are in the first hour of work or the 16th hour of work, and using an exception that legally allows you to work the maximum. If you're not in a position to get rest because you can't find a place to park but are unable to drive, call the office. We will come get you and get someone to bring the truck back for you. You should never drive sick or tired. All right, let's start with the very basics. Every driver, no matter what distances you drive, must have a way to record his hours of service. If you're a local driver within a 150 air mile radius of your parking spot that you start and finish at every day, then you can run under what they call the time card exception. We use the daily sheets to record these. If you're outside that 150 air mile radius regularly, then you must have an electronic logging device called an ELD. Under the time card exception, you keep track of all the places you go on a daily sheet and record those working hours on the sheet, as well as every place you go. No one should be filling out a logbook every day unless you have a truck that is 1999 or older engine model. In discussing logs, let's first start with what we call the 14-hour rule. Without talking about exceptions that exist, a driver may work up to 14 hours a day, meaning if he starts working at midnight, he must be done working by 2 p.m. That's your shift clock. 14 hours in a single day is the maximum. Then we talk about the 11-hour rule. Within your 14-hour work window, you may drive no more than 11 hours a day. In this case, they're only talking about the actual driving, no more than 11 hours of driving. Then we move on to what's called the 8-hour rule, also known as a 30-minute break. This rule says that every 8 consecutive hours of driving, you must take a 30-minute rest break. This break can be done by any non-driving status. Non-driving statuses include off-duty, on-duty, or sleeper berth. Essentially, the truck must be motionless for 30 consecutive minutes. We will get more into the duty statuses further along in this video, but if you have been driving for 7 hours and took 2 15-minute breaks of not driving over an 8-hour period, you'd still need to stop the truck for a full 30 minutes before continuing. The break of not driving must be 30 consecutive minutes. Then there's the 70-hour rule. In our case, we fall into a 70-hour rule category. We are open 7 days a week, so our drivers fall into 70 hours in 8 days. This means you can work a maximum of 70 hours in an 8-day rolling period. If a trucking company isn't open 7 days, they fall into a 60-hour in 7 days category. 34-hour restart's another definition you need to know. A 34-hour restart means you are off 34 consecutive hours in a row. Once you've been off duty for 34 hours in a row, your 70-hour clock restarts. Every driver should have blank logbooks with them. It's a requirement for any truck driver who has an ELD to have at least 8 days of blank logbooks, but every driver should have blank logbooks. If you are working on the time card exception but cannot make it back to your parking lot within 14 hours, or if you must travel outside of the 150 air mile radius, then you're absolutely going to need a logbook for that day. Let's talk about the various duty statuses and what they mean. On duty. Any time spent working. Examples include pre-trip inspection, post-trip inspection, unloading, loading, waiting for repair service, any police inspection. Fueling the truck must also be an on-duty activity. Off-duty. This is the opposite of on-duty. Off-duty. When you are free from dispatch to pursue your own activities. Example could include you're done for the day at home or stopping for food. Sleeper berth. In order to use the sleeper berth status, your truck must have a sleeper berth. It also must meet certain criteria in terms of size and things like you actually must have a blanket inside the sleeper berth to use the sleeper berth. A day cab cannot use this status. Use this status when you are physically inside the sleeper berth portion of the truck, away from the controls of the truck. Driving status. Time spent driving the truck. Yard move. This is one of the new ones that came out with ELD. Yard move is time spent driving on private property can use yard move. Examples include the JS parking lot, rail parking lots, customer receiver yards. Personal conveyance. This is one of the most misunderstood concepts, but is actually pretty straightforward. At some point we will do a deeper dive on this with its own video, but personal conveyance should only be used when the truck is not being used to the motor carrier's advantage and for purely personal use. An example, you want to take your truck to get some food. You want to go to the grocery store shopping in your truck. You're going to your house with the truck. Not where you normally park, but you could decide to travel to your home for personal reasons. Personal conveyance cannot be used to return to your parking location. That is considered the return portion of the trip and should be on-duty driving. It cannot be used to go to a mechanic. It cannot be used to pre-pull a container or end your day early. One other way you can use it is called safe haven. You should only use safe haven when you are completely out of hours or close enough where you know you must activate it in order to get your truck somewhere safe. This allows you to turn on safe haven and drive a short distance to the nearest reasonable place to get rest. Times you might need to use this include you're stuck at a railroad and spent too much time at the yard because of issues at the ramp, or stuck at a customer so long that you ran out of legal hours. You can turn on safe haven and go to a safe place to get some rest. When you use that status, you must count those hours as though they were working hours in terms of your next start time. You want at least 10 hours off duty or in sleeper berth after you get to your safe place. Now let's talk about filling out a paper logbook. Up at the top, you'll see month, date, year. This, like every other part of the document, must be filled out. Name of carrier. You would put JS Trucking Incorporated. Main office address. 12843 Pulaski, Alsip, Illinois, 60803. Home terminal address. If you park here, use the same address. Truck and trailer numbers. You must list every truck number and every container you move that day. So if you moved 4 containers, you should have 4 container numbers there. If you drove only one truck, just one truck number. But if you switch trucks, then you'd have 2 or 3 truck numbers. Certification signature spot. You don't do this or sign this until the end of the day. When you finish the day, you sign this. You don't fill it out until the day is completely over. Bill of lading or manifest number. For every loaded container you move, you must have listed the BOL number or shipper commodity. So if you make one delivery and one reload, you should have at least 2 numbers listed. When filling out the logbook, you notate beneath it at the location you were at, i.e. if you start at JS at 4 a.m., go on duty, mark below it pre-trip, Alsip, Illinois. Then this would be a line through driving, then would be on duty at the receiver when you get there. You would mark the location, for instance, unloading, Zeeland, Michigan. Let's look at another type of logbook. This one has the logbook and the DVIR on the same page. They still must be treated like separate documents, so you list all the trucks and containers on there. You don't fill it out and sign the DVIR until the end of the day, unless you have already found a violation. Then you would list that, but you would not complete it until the end of the day. If you don't have an ELD, you can fill out a paper logbook up to 8 times in any consecutive 30-day period. If you go over that amount, you must install an ELD. Reasons to fill out a paper logbook include over the 150 air mile radius. What if I'm doing a delivery to Grand Rapids, Michigan, but my delivery location changes after I get there to Howard City, Michigan? Well, as soon as you find out you need to leave the 150 air mile radius, you would build your logbook based on that information you have. What time did you start? So create from memory all the events up until that point you found out you would need a logbook. Reason 2. You can't return to your parking location within 14 hours. If this happens, you have to do a logbook for 2 consecutive days. One showing where you did park, and another showing you starting at the spot the following day. Reason 3, you're using an exemption, like short haul exemption or the adverse driving conditions exemption. In order to use exemptions like this, you must fill out a paper logbook unless you are an ELD driver. Reason 4, your ELD isn't operating correctly. If it isn't, always let the office know. We cannot see the errors on your device. In this video, we have discussed the very basics of hours of service. If you ever have questions or need more assistance, the best choice is to schedule a live session with the safety team. You can also call at any time during the day and get answers as to what's legal and what's not. They will gladly see you and go through all of the details in a live session. Other video resources will constantly be coming out. We will be doing videos on how to do a split sleeper berth, personal conveyance in greater depth, the 16-hour short haul exception, adverse driving conditions, and yard move. If you have other topics you would like to see, reach out to a member of the safety team. Last topic, what happens if you violate the hours of service? In some cases, it will mean dismissal from the company entirely. At a minimum, it will mean remedial training in person on the hours of service and time off until we are confident you understand the hours of service. If you're in an accident caused by fatigue, you can go to jail for operating a motor vehicle while fatigued. Federal law prohibits breaking the hours of service rules.